Hello friends. Friends, this video is being dedicated for all those viewers who want to learn, understand about the colonization and its darkest roots in the India. But our main dimensions will regards to the whole world. This video is dedicated upon the book that is India, that is Bharat. But my main concerns will be regarded to all those chapters which this book actually inculcates within. In this video, we will more learning about that how this colonization deeply impacted our indigenous society, as this books clearly mentioned all about those prominent things that actually taken place during the process of colonization. But my main motive and idea with respect to this book is this book has given a lot of new dimensions to understand about the Western imperialism and the coloniality through which all the today's nations is being suffering, and which has corrupted the practices of the indigenous societies for today. Almost what we can understand through this book is the darkest chapters of the colonialism, how the journey of the age of discovery begins, and how does it impacted the whole world that's coming from the Atlantic oceans to the north, to the Indian Ocean region. So we will be discussing about all those chapters which is actually given in this book, but starting with the very first chapter, that is colonization, colonialism, coloniality and decoloniality, language matters. As this chapter clearly mentions about the colonization, first of all we need to understand what is actually the colonization is all about. Colonization means to is a process through which the by which the people actually belonging to a certain nation establishes colonies in other societies, and while retaining their bonds with the parent nation. So when actually some people actually belonging to a certain nation, they go to the other territory, okay, and they starts to uh, establish their they starts to build their colonies in the society, and while they have their bonds with the previous nation, okay, so they don't actually dissected from their nation, they actually live with under their patronage, but they go through a colonized way. And the second foremost thing that is in the colonization that happens is all about the exploiting the colonized society. Okay, the society which you have colonized, you are exploiting this to benefit the parent nation and themselves. Basically you are going to benefit the parent nation, and the mostly that economical way that you're going to basically the process of establishing the colonies is known as colonization. When you establishes the colonies, the process is known to be colonization. Okay, and the policy of using the colonization to increase one's footprint is known as colonialism. This book clearly mentions that what is a basic difference between colonization, colonialism. Okay, so when you starts to increase your foot remarks, okay, to the other nation, so that is actually known to be the colonialism. Okay, you starts to establishing your new colonial societies, and that leads to the process of policy through which you colonize the other territories, known as colonialism. And there are four types of colonialism that exists. First is the exploitative colonialism, or we would say the exploitation colonialism. Second is the settler colonialism. Third is the surrogate, and the fourth is the internal. But here we will largely talking about the exploitative and the settler colonialism. Now what happens in the exploitative colonialism, this is very important and interesting, that most of the Southeast Asian countries, including India, the remarkable example with respect to the exploitative colonialism, Britishers exploited us, and they have exploited us in the form of economic terms. They didn't settle here first of all for a large time. They actually exploit us from a very small part of the territory, then they enlarged, and after that, the foremost form of colonialism is known as to be settler colonialization, that actually they did after the 1857 revolt. Now, if we see in the Africa, they formatted that policies in Africa, although for settling their colonies, but they took a long time in the Southeast Asian countries to look for a permanent settlement. And if we see in the second type of colonialism, that is settler colonialism, the settler colonialism is a colonialism. Here, the colonizers not only retain their bonds with the parent nation, not only retain their bonds with the parent nation, but also settle large number in the colony and take over all aspects of the colonized society. So this is very important. Here, they don't only retain their bonds with the parent nation, but they increase the number of colonized societies they colonized. Okay, so in the settler colonialism, they permanently settling in the colonized societies and subjugating all the aspects of the particular one society. Now you see that how this transformation going to take place. Okay, the first of all is this coloniality. What is this word coloniality? You have read about this word several times in many textbooks, but what is actually the realistic meaning of the coloniality is coloniality is a fundamental element or the thought that informs the policy of colonialism. Okay, so basically it is a fundamental thought. Okay, what actually informs about the policy of colonialism and advances the subtler end of colonization. So what does mean by the subtler? So first of all, that the making use of clever and indirect method to achieve something, that means a subtler. Okay, when you do something cleverly and indirect way, and just making your advances and achieving something in a clever way, so that means a subtler, and that is actually the end of that is the end goal of colonization. So you have to go through this subtler way, and then you are going to permanently settle in that colonized society. So this is a basic framework that I have laid out here. Now this colonization of now we are talking about the colonization as complete. So first of all, that in the colonization, what happens? The society's mind actually got captured. Okay, or you would say got present. Second is the cultural domination. You starts to increase your cultural domination for the other for the and subjugate the other basically culture. Okay, and third is the world view of colonized societies. These three things we are going to talk about with respect to the ultimate objectives. So first of all, we are going to talk about the cultural coloniality. The cultural coloniality is a coloniality which actually culturally dominating coloniality. Okay, when you are dominated culturally, if you see in the 16th century, the continuing from the mercantilized and the industrial dominion, new colonial eras, these resulted in the suppression and the erase of the local cultures, arts and ideas. Okay, when actually these Europeans enter to the colonized societies, they start first of all what thing? They hold a cultural colonialism and they suppressed it through erasing their local cultures, arts, ideas. So when these things actually got eradicated, then the dominance actually start by the then actually the dominance starts by the Europeans and leads to blanketing of the dominant of the European culture, and this leads to the blanketing of the dominance of European culture. And how you see now that and homogenization of the society starts to take place. This shaped view of the people and to think influenced this the cultural colonialism actually shaped the view of the people and their ability to think. Okay, so that influences more largely about the politics. Okay, the economics, if you see, religion, language, clothing, cuisine, and devastating impact of the technological advances in the 21st century that we are seeing today also. So whatever the technological advancement is taking place, is that because of the colonization in the 21st century. So these all things get actually shaped through the cultural colonialism. You see, there is a drastic change in the politics, how the political institutionalization has to be taken place, and old form of politics actually got converted into the new form of politics that actually given by the western colonialism. And there's some new terms that you have seen, the secularism, like, so that is also given by the western worldview. Economics, okay, their pattern of economics actually comes. Religion, they change some new, they brought some new aspects to the religion, we'll talk about that also. And the language, actually, yes, definitely, why not. Cultural colonialism just not only changes the language, but they impose their language to the society where they colonized. That is the one of the biggest important thing to understand about the cultural colonialism. Cultural imperialism they did. What is imperialism? You know, when stronger forces imposes its culture in the weaker one, that is known to be the cultural imperialism. When you forcefully imposes your culture to the weaker one, you are doing the cultural imperialism, and that increased demands for the western products and lifestyle in the post-colonial society. Further, it has enhanced today also. If we see today, we have consumed we have increased the consumption of the products that actually got which actually got transported from the west side. So this shows the cultural imperialism, the dominance of the cultural imperialism from the west side. And also today it is increasing and increasing and increasing demands. So how to control this thing is a very major problem. And we need to today protect our products as much as which we can do. So controlling the education and the written text, you are controlling the education, you are controlling the written text. So this is actually a form of cultural imperialism. If we see about one of the very famous quote that Swami Vivekanand has mentioned for the Indian civilization is that history itself bears testimony to the fact all the soul elevating ideas and the different branches of knowledge that exists in the world are found on a proper investigation to have their roots in India. History itself bears that fact. All the things that proper investigated throughout the world has have their roots in India. So this is one of the very remarkable quote that was mentioned by the Swami Vivekanand, and gives a very huge uh, statement for the West, that how the Indian culture is more prominent than the West, because our culture, our indigeneity, our roots are more longer than 3000 years back. So this is very important. Now the first fact that I just want to give for to give you all is that TB Macaulay, he mentioned a very uh, corruptive thing with respect to the cultural colonialism. If you see in an aspect, Thomas Babington Macaulay, 1800-1859, he was the law member of the Governor General's Council. First of all, first point is that it is a it is our duty, it is our duty British to edify the population who live in perpetual darkness outside the Europe. This is the very ruthless thing that actually TV Macaulay mentioned in the letter, that it is the Britishers' duty that they will edify the population who live in the darkness outside the Europe. Second, Macaulay mentioned the minutes. These minutes held that our Sanskrit and Arabic language had limited. So our texts have to be formulated by these people, by the Britishers mostly. And the second is that a single shelf of a European library was worth than the entire native literature of India. So this is actually a quote which was mentioned by the Macaulay, and this shows that how they are dominating our culture, and most of our texts, our literature, our language. And this shows the cultural hegemony of the Western Europe imperialism towards the towards the Indian native society. Now the second is that our education system was intentionally manipulated to serve the specific purposes. This is very important. Why this statement has mentioned over there? Because their intention was to um, give the English education system to the Indian natives and all the Southeast Asian nations, or including the Africa, because they have forgotten their languages today. Okay, and this has shown a proper example of the cultural coloniality. So, how much important is cultural coloniality is important to understand with respect to these principles. And the another example that if I just want to give with respect to this is the Max Mueller. Max Mueller in the 19th century is an European andalogist, and he said that India has been conquered once, but must be conquered again, and the second conquest by the education. So you know that, you see that how the education plays an important role in the cultural coloniality. If you have conquered one's education, one's text, one's literature, one's language, so it shows a huge uh, problems in the society, where that society is being barred and not able to reclaim their own knowledge and the persona. So the second point that I just want to mention with respect to the Max Mueller is that while writing the letter to his wife, he has specifically mentioned that he was employed to translate the Vedas in a manner that Hindus lose faith in them. On this is actually being documented, that how the cultural coloniality has taken their deepened roots to the society, where they have subjugated the once Vedas, once texts which were more profound and more accepted than 3000 years back. The third thing is that he also promulgated the Aryan invasion theory, and that leads to a proper, I would say, the proper disconvenience between the various historians also today, the Aryan invasion theory. And they have promulgated in such a way that it would actually give more racial supremacy to the West and not to the Indian perspectives. So this is actually the basic thing with respect to the cultural coloniality. I have given you several examples that how this cultural coloniality actually demarcates very clearly that how the colonialism steps forward for the first time. The second important thing, now this also leads to the European cultural coloniality. Okay, so I hope you all are fine with respect to all those examples that I have mentioned over here. Now moving to the second thing, if we see the in the Caribbean region, okay, Latin America basically, so we will find the consciousness and just subjectivities that have termed the decoloniality. They are the more profound scholars from the Latin American side and the Caribbean scholars also. So they have given a very wide view with respect to the decoloniality. We will understand these terms and the examples with respect to decoloniality, and various books have been written on the decoloniality. We will discussing with this. We will discussing in other lectures. But now moving to the Western European colonialism. The Western European colonialism starts with the cultural coloniality. After cultural coloniality, it actually spreads its wide omnipresence view and the longevity, if you would say. That includes the Western imperialism. I have already told you what is the imperialism, when the stronger forces imposes its culture in the other ones. Okay, we would say the cultural imperialism has done. And after that, what is the Western imperialism? West sides, they are forcing something to the other people through the through to the other people. Okay, so this has increased a lot after the if we say the 16th century, the 17th century, as we come more closer to the 19th century. So Eurocentrism, Western centralism, and the Western normativism increases. Also, the fourth point is the North Atlantic abstract universal frictionalism. This books mention these 4 points very clearly. Eurocentrism, when you are going, when you are becoming Eurocentric, okay, everything is being connected to the Europe center. And the second is the Western centricism, when everything is Western centric. Okay, and the third is which is talking about the Western normativism. If we will say about the normatism, what does it mean? Western normatism. It means that adjudicating those ideas and their norms and their social norms. So that is known to be the Western normatism. they are imposing their Western normatism to the indigenous societies where they have colonized the society, where they have colonized. And the fourth is very important, that is the North Atlantic abstract universal frictionalism. If you will read this book, you will find this is very important thing. What is the North Atlantic abstract universal frictionalism? This actually idea was given by the Michael Rolfe Trivoliet. He was an Hethian anthropologist, which say he says that the Atlantic actually becomes a center of universe. Atlantic becomes the center of universe after the 16th century. The first population flows in the 19th century. The movement of globality starts. Globality, okay, increases, and after the first, if you would say, the age of journey starts. The Christopher Columbus in 1493, then Christopher Columbus starts its traveling for the first voyage. And here you can see the picture, that a scene of Christopher Columbus bidding farewell to the Queen of Spain on his departure for the New World, 3 August 1492. So you are seeing that Christopher Columbus is actually departing, and this has taken a new marvel steps for the age of discovery. And after that, we have seen a proper Atlantic movement have increased. Various ships were traveling through the Atlantics, and it has become a center of trade and commerce for the European centricism, if you would say. And after that, uh, in a very personified way, if we will say, the globalization process actually starts. Now, the what is the Atlantic movement, if you see about, where the five continental masses, including Asia, the West conquest of America, Africa, plantation slavery started. Spain occupied Philippines. Britain captured India, and the US controlled the Korea till today. Also, if you see that South Korea is mostly controlled by United States of America. So this actually begins through the Atlantic movement, and how this shows the cultural dominance over the Asian Pacific countries. Now, taking a speedy process after return of Columbus 1493 to the Caribbean. Now, when actually Columbus came to India and other several countries, he went. After returning from these countries, he went to the Caribbean nation. Uh, that was that time known as Hispaniola. Okay, so ships were not only the instrument of conquest, but they were load of crops, fruits, seeds, animals, grape wine plants. Now, what is grape wine plants? This is very important because the Caribbean, the North Atlantic nations, basically, modern day, if you see the California, or the regions which comes under the United States, so they don't know the way how to grow the sugar cane and the wine. So these all supported by the Caribbean climate. They took all those things from our countries to their country, and planted a lot of grape wine plants, wheat seeds, and Columbus starts to grow wheat, wine, sugar cane in today's modern country that is known as Haiti or Dominion Republic. So these countries actually comes under the Caribbean island. Okay, so winemaking succeed in unexpected way. Places of California or the Chile we see, I've mentioned earlier. So winemaking resulted out in a success. Okay, so this leads to the Atlantic movement of globality. I hope you all are connecting with my points. Now the globalization process starts. In this second voice, Their men's and the crew were more specialized with farming, irrigation, road constructions, etc. In the 1942, we see about the Christopher Columbus discovery of new world started, and they moved towards the non-Christian world. After that, we have seen a Renaissance movement, Reformation movement, and the Treaty of Westphalia in 1648. That was the zenith of the Europe civilization. Okay, if we see Renaissance, Reformation, Treaty of Westphalia till 1648. We'll talk about the Renaissance, Reformation, and the Westphalia 1648 in our upcoming videos. Okay, not in this today's video. Now, the age of enlightenment, industrial revolution, all these started. And between the 15th and the 19th century, if we see modernity, modern concepts like raciality, consciousness, and modernism, rationality, these actually emerged out, and these have created a wide dominance over the colonized societies, and supremacy like words these originated. But unconsciously if, is unconsciously consciously, if we see that accepting consciously, these all words were accepted by the new order world. This leads to the cultural coloniality as well as the ideas that were actually projected by these colonized masters. So today's these modern ideas, okay, like these modern ideas actually altered the conceptions of nature, universe, human agency, religion, race, language, political organization, and the nature of states, its relationship with the religion, treatment of the gender, science, conception of law, and human rights. So these actually altered by these modern ideas. You see that how much it deeply impacted. And during the period of colonization, there were several thoughts of schools that were emerging. The first school of thought that if we'll talk about is that the modern school of thought. Modern school of thought is a school of thought who was supporting the Columbus voice. They says it was a glorious and a historic achievement, and Christians West destiny to liberate non-Christian indigenous societies from the wretched existence. This is actually thoughts which were actually given by the modern school of thought. They were supporting the West ideas, the new order, and the new modern ideas were supported by the modern school of thought. The second school of thought was the postmodern school of thought. What the postmodern school of thought tells about it, this says they were against the modern ideas of the uh, colonial societies. Okay, and they were very they were rejecting the modern ideas and the concepts of the modernity, if you would say. And the schools opposition to modernism and the realm of the culture. So these things we have seen in the second school of thought, that was the post colonial school of thought, which was actually rejecting all the modern ideas by the colonizers. And the third was the post colonial school. Post colonial school actually rejects the universality and claim of Eurocentrism. But after some time, they rejects the postmodern thought, and they accepted the European universalism, and revive the discussions upon the modern ideas. The fourth school was very important. That was the decolonized school. Decolonial school. So decolonial school was working moreover to challenge the European universalization of the modern ideas. And in the political realm, they believes that Columbus beginning to most repressive, bloody, racist, and the genocidal chapters ever witnessed in the human history. It, it was said by the decolonial school. This school was totally against the we would say the modern school of thought. The modern school of thought saying that ki we are following the modern ideas that was projected by the modern that was projected by the colonial masters. And according to the decolonial thought, the European coloniality gave birth to cultural complex. This is very important, the word cultural complex of modernity and rationality. Cultural complex leads to the racial complex. So these complexions actually created by these West colonial masters. And after that, this mindset can only be ended with the decolonization. We see a very new decolonial theories that these were emerging in the Caribbean islands and in the South America, Latin America, we would say. So basically, the colonial thought and their people, they come from there, like Walter de Mingolo, like all those people, they come from the South America and the Latin America. So here we propounded a very important school, that is the decolonial school, and which we will going to deal in our upcoming lectures. Now this shown unfortunately that it survived, decolonized, and impacted the independent societies at large. You know that how the cultural complexes, the racial complexes, they actually impacted the society at large. So I have talked about the cultural coloniality, the various we can give examples with respect to that, but they have impacted moreover our language, our literature, our texts, our historical documents, our whole lingua franca that we used to speak, and the way of living. Now the Latin America has contributed to understand the coloniality and to contribute. So scholarship largely revolves around the America, South America, Caribbean, followed by Africa. First of all, the one continent that started a revolution against the coloniality was the Latin America. Then after that, South America, the Caribbean, and then Africa, then India also joined later. So this is very important to understand how the colonialism actually impacted the society at large. And in our upcoming new fundamental chapters, we will be discussing how this have given a huge impacted to the society and changed our way of living, our mindset, and hijacked our cultural independence. So thank you for watching this video. We'll continue the part second. If you like this video, share and promote. Thank you very much.